All right, hello there, everybody. As it says up top, I am not Lillian. Just want to make sure, because it was a late change for those of you coming in late. She asked like last week if she could switch. I said, I was, I guess, the only one who said, sure, I'll switch. So I'm the 3 o'clock tomorrow, if you have still have the old schedule. If you got the new one or if you saw the update. I'm Eric Schultz. So let's see, today, looking over the list of topics, they were looking for speakers. You could talk about A, B, C, D, E. I thought, I don't know if I can fill up a presentation on one thing, but perhaps I can cover a lot of things in lessons learned throughout the years. I've had a number of different roles. Like I said, so I've been working on the number of different roles, a number of different jobs, from computers, writing software, programming, systems engineer, network engineer, and for the last 10, 15 years, cybersecurity in general. I just thought I'd throw the plug out there for my wife. We've been married 35 years now, a little over that, and I am a Christian. And so what I've been doing throughout the years, you see right there, most recently, I'm working to support Splunk and Cribble for the customer. These are tools, if you're familiar with it, they help you monitor. Splunk helps you monitor network events and try to put things together so you can see what's happening on your network. Cribble is a tool that helps you manipulate your data, massage it or change it to help standardize it in case you have different devices out there. And they send slightly different styles of data. Cribble can help you make it standard. So when you pass it on to the next step, it's easier. Before that, I was also, similarly, I was working to support ArcSight, another network monitoring tool that gathers events and lets you understand what's happening. And then probably one of the best parts of my career, especially these last half of it here, we were an in-house red team, and we had a lot of fun. What by in-house I mean, we worked as an independent team. We kind of were given space to do whatever we wanted. We just kept our team lead up to date, and we wrote reports, which went all the way up to the CISO in this case. We gave him briefings on the things we were finding, things we were doing. And then before that, same customers it turned out, but I was part of the Tier 1 team, this time at the keyboard and the monitor, watching all these events come in and trying to decide what they were and if they were anything important and pass them on, perhaps Tier 2 or Tier 3 or something like that. And then before that, a number of different positions, pulling cables. I've pulled cables under buildings. Let's see, I've installed who knows how many versions of Windows, Linux and Unix. So then, of course, a lot of the applications that go with it, a lot of utilities I've patched, I've updated. A lot of fun throughout the years. So this isn't quite maybe security, but I was playing AI is a big thing. Sorry about that. It's like every, I think, presentation I've been in has mentioned AI, but I was playing with it. One of these grammar and spelling checker type things. So I started with what's right above me here, these 3 paragraphs. As you see, I just typed in what was on the top of my head. And then I came back and you know, the screen was refreshed. So I'll look at this top section here now. The AI suggested that we make some changes. And then the lower part, the AI suggested some more changes when I went back to the page, refreshed the screen, whatever. So I found it very interesting how it evolves over time, because this is starting to be the AI correcting itself. Let's see, where does it add? 30 years. I like how it asks, appreciate your time. I do appreciate your time. Thank you for coming. I hope I put together a good presentation here. Let's see, so insights, yeah, I do hope I can give you some insights so you can apply, or you can learn from my mistakes and the mistakes of the people around me. So, but this is the AI adding more and more, and it's correcting itself. So that finally, here's the beginning again, what I put down, and then, I don't know, 15 refreshes of the page later, and accepting the various edits it suggested, we end up with that. And just to be clear, I wrote this, the AI wrote everything else. So here's your first lesson, I guess I'd say, as we're seeing in the news reports. Use the tools to augment what you're doing, but don't let them take control. And I'll get back to that more later, but they can help, but you want to be careful, and I'll have some examples of why you want to be careful. But another way of looking at AI, a little different from some of the other comments, is, as I said, the cost. You can look at some of the numbers up here. Training OpenAI's ChatGPT 4 is estimated to cost about $100 million. And they burn through about 50 gigawatt hours of power. That's a lot of processing, that's a lot of heat, and we've got to generate that power for things. I don't know about this area. I'm from a little bit east, closer to DC. There are just all these, nondescript 2 to 3 story buildings. They basically have no windows, hardly have any doors. They're just a big rectangular box. Cloud infrastructure, and that's probably where a lot of this stuff is running, on somebody's cloud somewhere. Another way of looking at it on this side, you see again some of the comparisons. 42 queries, and you've done about a 50-minute TV binge. One TV show. It's not really a binge in my opinion, one show. If every person in the US made one query to ChatGPT, 685 megawatt hours, which is about 63 average American homes for an entire year. So this is a very costly thing. It looks very promising, a lot of fun, and people have had a lot of fun if you haven't been checking the news, but very costly as well. You can look these things up. I have the links for a lot of these. Another way of looking at it, and I provided the links if you want more information, is the cost to jobs. This is Microsoft. 2 different viewpoints. I'm not really sure. The number's not the same, so I'm not sure if this is 2 different events. But 6,000 jobs being cut here, and 9,000 jobs being cut there. So this is coming, and it's going to replace some things, especially if we don't, I don't know, if we don't start thinking now. So this is one of the lessons. Think about it now. How far do we want this to go? How far are we willing to let it? You might have to start talking amongst ourselves and talking with the legislature and saying, can we slow this down a little bit? Can we see what's going to happen? And there's more reasons to slow it down. But that's quite a lot. It's especially the time of the government shutdown. We're hearing of people being furloughed and or being let go. Where I am, I'm very fortunate. Giving it away there, I'm on a government contract, but we had funding, at least actually, we're very fortunate, probably well into 2026. So we are fine, but I know some people around us have had troubles. And that's just the government shutdown. This may continue to grow. So I think the theme of the conference was to give you all some hope or something like that, some things to way to handle all this cyber technology. This unfortunately doesn't help, I'm sure. It probably gives you some nightmares about what's coming and is your job next. I don't know. Now the bad side again, or you got to be careful with AI. I first became aware of this one, so I thought I'd look up other cases, but here we had a lawyer who was submitting a brief in court, and this is only a couple years old, but it is a couple years old. And it turned out, I guess, like 3 of his cited cases were fictitious. I loved the word hallucinated. I think that's probably very accurate. I bet the AI folks, the people who designed these models, the people who train these models, I bet they can't tell you why I came up with that. You would probably have to research what the case was and do some searching around on the web. You might be able to find out. My guess is one or more of these was possibly someone's scenario. If this legal case came up, this might be how the judge would handle it, this might be how you would argue it, but it was totally fictitious, but it was included as previous case work. And then there's even more. Now you see June of 23. Let's see, some non-existent cases. 2024, non-existent cases. People did the research. They used an AI tool to help them find these cases. I guess they didn't have one of the paralegals, admins, whatever, check to make sure they were legitimate. And on and on. Let's see, up here, defamation case, again, non-existent. It's even over in the UK. Immigration case, they, I guess, were appealing an immigration decision. And the casework they presented was not real, never happened. And note the dates, October 2025, October 2025, 2025. It's still October 2025, right? So these are all recent. Now we're starting to move from the fiction toward the science fiction, but here we have, don't know if you all are aware, obviously there's a lot of effort to get cars to self-drive, but I don't know if you're aware that there is this novelty, the convention center in Las Vegas. It's a very wide complex, so multiple buildings. And even in the winter months, it's probably well into the 90s. So in the summer months, it's 100, 110, 115. So they put together a loop, if you will, underground. And it goes from the main buildings around and back. Self-driven cars. Except unfortunately, I believe it is currently shut down because there was an injury. I don't believe the person was killed, but they were injured. And again, sorry, I've got bad news for you all. You know, a lot of you who are younger, this is coming for you. You'll have to make decisions. But I hope people are thinking, what happens when something goes wrong? I'm not sure why it stopped. I'm not sure, you know, why didn't the sensor catch that this person was in the way or that this was a bad thing? What finally took to stop it? And if it's stopped, how do we get it reset and restarted? And who has the authority to do that? Who has the authority to stop one car? Who has the authority to stop all the cars? It looks like this is coming, so we need to be thinking about this. I don't really have any good answers for you, but so then I'll flip over here. Oh yeah, that's right. I just found this like within the last week. This was funny. I don't know if you ever get caught up in the shorts, the YouTube shorts or something similar. I admit I do get caught up every now and then, and one of the ones that came up on the screen was at least two people inside of a car, and they've got their own camera phone. And we're looking through the windshield, and there's a cop standing in the road, and they've gotten some traffic situation. Don't know why, but it's stopped. It's gridlock. And the cop is, you know, pointing and waving, and the people inside are just sitting there, and is pointing and waving. And he's starting to get agitated. You can tell he's going to start walking to the car. And they start laughing. It's a driverless car. The cop is trying to direct traffic, and the car is just sitting there. So how do we handle that? Does the cop have some little gadget and he can tell it to stop? Okay, what if it's a bad stop, or what if it's, how do you handle that? What if he stops the car in traffic and there's a multi-car pileup? But if it doesn't respond to him, what do we do? Is there a steering wheel in the car? How do we activate it? Who can activate it? Your 12-year-old child, son, daughter, can they activate it? The 8-year-old kid? Every now and then you see those stories of some kid getting behind the wheel and driving away. Do they get to activate it? So what do we do about these things? Again, unfortunately, I don't really have any answers for you there. How does it, I'll go back real quick. The last line I put in there, how could it recognize him? Could it recognize him as a person of authority? What would it recognize? Would it recognize the badge? What if I get a fake badge? Would it recognize the uniform, something about the uniform, the cap? What if I get a nice Halloween costume? How do we decide who has the authority to stop it? How do we make sure the vehicles can recognize that authority and stop? How do we stop them safely? For example, anybody see Total Recall? I'm old enough, I saw the original, but did anybody see the reboot? With all these nice vehicles moving along on those elevated parts of this new city, this modern city. I don't know, they're hundreds of feet up in the air. I guess they were magnetically levitating about 3 feet off the platform, and some of them are suspended by magnetic attraction, I guess. Now, it's not AI necessarily, but they probably would have some kind of mode like that. They probably would have something in the real world. How would you keep them veering off the side if a human's up there and a human swerves and they're off on the ramp, they're off the platform and falling to the ground? Probably would be some kind of system that keeps the car under control. Well, what happens if it goes wrong? Again, what happens about the sensors? This is science fiction, but what do we do about that? Is that a safe thing? Is that a smart thing? This is where I think I'll say I don't think that's very safe or smart. I don't think that's a smart way to go. And similarly, perhaps even more so, in the Minority Report, it was a sci-fi from about 20 years ago now, based on a short story by Philip Dick. And even more so, if I remember, there are scenes where these vehicles, and these were automated, if I remember, they're climbing up buildings or going across, coming back down. Again, what happens if the steering goes? What happens if the navigation goes? What happens if the power goes? If you've got magnetic levitation, what happens if it comes down and slams onto the surface and skids to a halt, scratching things, gouging things? Does it stop in time? I don't think it's a very good idea. And so now I think we'll get more into some of the real history and some things you're probably really hoping to hear. But although I didn't have any hand in this myself, a couple incidents of insiders, and back to more the cyber and what goes wrong. Lessons to be learned. She now goes by Chelsea Manning. but she is one of the ones who exfiltrated a bunch of data from her job. My understanding was she took CDs in, rewritable CDs. She puts music on it, had her headphones, so she could actually hand the headphones over to the guards and say, I'm listening to music. And then she would go in, copy the files that she wanted onto the same CD and walk out with it. I've been in a few secure facilities, and I don't think they would have let me take a CD player. I don't think they even would let me take a CD in. Now, of course, I can sneak it in. I can go buy them, and if they don't check all of my pockets, they might not see that I have a CD, or especially these thumb drives. Ooh, these small thumb drives. But if we put policies in place, we have to make sure people understand the policies and they know what they're looking for. They know what they're not supposed to do. Edward Snowden, another one who exfiltrated a lot of data. His was a little different. He took the accounts. He got accounts from around him, brute level accounts that were not his. They were not for his use. And he got access to the systems, and he took the data, put it onto some sort of media, I don't remember what type, and then he took it with him as he left. A lot of places have policies. We are supposed to have our own accounts, and we are supposed to only use our own accounts. Was anybody monitoring this? Was anybody checking the logs to make sure people were not misusing the accounts? Did they have a nice talk with all the other folks who perhaps knew what he was doing with the accounts? Tell them that you're not supposed to do that. When somebody asks for somebody else's account, don't allow that. So these are things we need to be working on. This one's a real one. I didn't work on this. I just found this recently, an airline luggage scam. A guy would come up with various fake identities. He'd book himself a flight. When he got to his destination, he'd file a claim. The luggage was lost. This was all one long quote, so I left it. My apologies, I forgot the reference. But you could probably look this up. It was fairly recent. So they think he made more than 180 false claims, and I think further in the article it stated it might have totaled up to well into the hundreds of thousands of dollars in claims that he collected from these various airlines. So how can we fight against that? What could we do to make sure this was a legitimate passenger with a legitimate claim? So like I said, unfortunately, maybe I'm giving you all more nightmares than anything else, but if you want some fun, this is totally in the movie world. If you never saw The Beekeeper, it's a fun action adventure. Basically, social engineering, one of these companies, who knows where they are around the world. In this case, they were in the US, and they target those who are not as savvy. As others have said, we are aware of a lot of this, but the folks around us may not be. And so it gave her the false warning that she's possibly been compromised. Why don't you go to our website and download our software? Oh, you can't download it? Well, that's okay. Why don't you give me access to your computer? I'll take care of everything for you. And so then they loaded their Trojan, and they waited for her to access some accounts, like her bank accounts, and they drained it within seconds. And the movie goes on from there, so I won't spoil anything, but it's a lot of fun. If you know the nickname Handsome Rob, I'm trying to think of the guy's name, the actor's name. Now, my wife and I call him Handsome Rob. But he's been in a number of movies, so there we go, Jason Statham, thank you. A recent one in 2024. Okay, now some of the things I was involved in, or at least my teams were involved in, so perhaps some of the fun that you were waiting for. This was not me. This member of my team was going into a building for a red team assessment. The previous talk was talking about that, a red team assessment. We were going out to a site, and we were trying to do anything we could on the network via computers and software, or we would walk into buildings, the social engineering side. And one of the team I was on said he went into the building with a backpack. And the guard was going to check the backpack and takes out a thumb drive and an external hard drive, an external DVD writer, CD writer, whatever, and maybe some cables and whatever. Started to put everything back in and said, I can't let you take the thumb drive into the building. I'm not picking on the guard, but he needed better training. Frankly, probably everything in the backpack shouldn't have been allowed in the building. But that's what we're doing, as the guy previously was saying. You have to go out and you try to find ways past. You try to find what'll work and what won't. And in that case, he stopped one thing out of maybe 5 that really shouldn't have been allowed in the building. And again, don't blame the guard. He needs better training. So I love the lower one. I don't know if anybody peeked ahead, but this one, I wish I'd been there. I wish I'd been there. We had an assessment, and they had some equipment in the car and sitting in the front passenger seat. And it was parked fairly close to a pedestrian entrance, a controlled area pedestrian entrance. And some people walking by, I guess, noticed. They didn't know what the stuff was. Maybe there's a little heightened tension. You know, security levels up a little bit. They informed the security. They came over, looked at the car. They didn't recognize the car. They didn't know who it belonged to. So they busted out the driver's side window, the passenger side window, to get to the equipment. And he had to file a claim for the damage done to the rental car. And another one, I was here for this, so close. We were performing our out brief, explaining what we did, what was successful, what wasn't. And part of my team had brought in a box. It looked an awful lot like a UPS, uninterruptible power supply, if people are not sure. But it was actually a Wi-Fi access point inside the box. We plugged it in, but we don't ever introduce a vulnerability, so it went nowhere. It was a beacon, if you will. And so the defenders were going around the building. They thought they spotted something. They were wondering. They're trying to zero in. He noticed a box under the desk, but he was fooled, so he didn't collect it. And he was beside himself when, on the outbrief, he found out that that was actually the Wi-Fi point they were looking for. So the lesson to be learned there, you know, if you're performing an assessment, A, try lots of different things. Or if you're the defending side, go with your gut, you know, go a little further, take that next step. If he had unplugged the power, they might have noticed the signal was gone, and they might have collected it. Oh yeah, sorry, so I would say a lesson here, the previous one, if you're going on an assessment and you're renting cars or whatever, make sure you get the insurance options. So, give kudos, one more, this was a fun one. He said he was in the dumpster. As we go through the assessments, he might agree, I'm not sure, the previous presenter. You start out quiet as you can. You start with the things they won't notice. As you make your way in, you get louder, or perhaps if you're not having any reactions at all, you know, you might start getting louder toward the end. So he was walking around in a dumpster. No, not one of the garbage type things, but just more of the paper and plastic and whatever else. But he's rooting around in a dumpster, being deliberately obvious, and people are walking right by and not paying any attention until finally, you know, Private Smith, not his real name, but yes, Army contract. Private Smith stopped, you know, sir, are you supposed to be in there? You're supposed to be doing that? So we gave him mention on the front out report because somebody finally asked what's going on. So again, if you're doing a red team assessment, have fun, try to do things toward the end that you may not do normally, because now it doesn't really matter. You've gotten in, you've reached your objectives. So have a little fun until they catch you, if that's within your parameters. And if you can, always see if there's something positive you can add to the report. Other things I've learned along the way. So I'm telling a little bit on my teammates and such, but on one assessment we were network scanning. If you've used Nmap, great tool. We were given the ranges to try to keep within certain locations and not just scan their entire network. We were given ranges, and so I know in Nmap there is an option to do decoys. If you're not familiar with it, you should probably look it up. Because of course, when you send out the packets, it knows it's from your box and response come back to your box, but you can send out decoys that they come from your box, but not really, if you will. They're not supposed to come from your box. So I just picked 3 IPs at random, and it turned out I got lucky because at least one was a legitimate box. And so that confused them, that slowed them down. They had to go check that box too to find out what was going on. So there are lots of features on tools that I think we're not always aware of, and you may have a good use for it. So if you get a chance to use the tool, make sure you understand what it can do for you. And I thought it was kind of funny. A few of the previous presentations have touched on some of these. Years ago, I became aware that the printers were growing in power and capability. People may not know there is a lot of storage on the printers. They'll usually try to queue up jobs and get to them as they can. And so depending on how the printer is locked down, you may be able to reach the interface remotely, and you may be able to leave files behind. You could use that as a file storage. And of course, you can have some fun. One of the first things I did, if you see this down at the bottom, don't know if any of you have heard of Hijetter. I'm not really sure why. It looks kind of like the HP logo. They were picking on HP, I guess, but they called it that. And the organization, I'm not sure if they're still online anymore, Phenelit, something like that. But they wrote this little utility that would let you do some of these things, connect to printers and see what their parameters were, and you could change the default message. So it worked one time. I did change it to say insert coin instead of OK. So I actually got somebody, a coworker, actually came into my office a little while later and said, "What's wrong with the printer? It says insert coin." So I had a hard time not laughing, but that was a number of years ago, 15, 20 years ago. Yes, the next one upper right here. When I was on the red team, the internal red team, as I said, I've been both, more official red team and internal one. I started writing my own utilities, and one of the first ones I wrote I called Wander, so that I could point it at a network share and simply find out what was there. It would start wherever I pointed it and try to work its way into every folder below that. So if you had a nice organization, nice big organization, maybe gigabytes of storage space, you find lots of interesting things, to include sometimes spreadsheets with user accounts and passwords. And I was running this as a user, so anybody else on the network could have found these things and also opened up these files. Though some, yes, I did try, some of the user accounts and passwords didn't work, others still did. So once again, I guess know your environment and know what's accessible to you and make use of it. Oh, and one final note there. Only one office seemed to notice that I went through just about every folder I could get on. They had locked down. They had it nicely locked down. Only one office complained. And thankfully, though, they were interested more in counterintelligence or that sort of, monitoring monitoring this organization. So I'm glad they noticed, at least, that I was poking around. But they make a few phone calls, and they find out I'm part of the red team, so I get my wrist slapped, and that's about it. Oh, yes, another fun one a little earlier. We're more of a blue team role. They wanted to do a phishing assessment, and for whatever reason, the red team passed. I don't know, they were busy, something. So those behind this phishing effort turned to our team, and we said, sure, we'll give it a try. We had not done phishing before. So we did some brainstorming. We came up with, I think, about 6 scenarios. I think we decided amongst ourselves these are probably about the best 3, and we ran those. And boy, did we get some response. I always loved the fast pass type thing, the small transponder box you can have in your car, so you can go through some of the toll gates quickly. Easy pass or fast pass or whatever they call that thing. So we were saying that we were going to propose something like that in this case, a military base, so you could go to the left maybe and zoom right on through. They wouldn't check your ID. They wouldn't, slow you down. And yeah, we got people from all ranks and stuff. They wanted to know more, and some of them were really angry when they found out it was phishing. So my motto here is always have top cover, or someone higher up there, because we had a colonel who wanted us fired. Thank goodness we had a colonel that stood behind us and said this was the team and they're doing what we asked them to. So make sure you've got people behind you. Make sure you know your parameters. Maybe they're down on paper. This is your range. This is what you're doing. And you can show that to people that it's a red team effort. We had some very frustrated folks. Okay, I'm being a little snarky here. The ID10T file, has anybody heard of that one before? The previous presentation in the next room over talked about someone who used her social security number as a password. Yeah, so there are people like that, but this is a little bit different. A number of years ago, someone sent out an email to a distro, and they shouldn't have used that distro because it went pretty much like building wide, I think at least 3,000 people. And unfortunately, I guess a lot of us do it this way. People were reading down their inbox. They didn't go through the entire thread, you might say. So they just saw this email. It was to a distro. They didn't understand, why did I get this? What am I doing on this distro? So they started to reply to all, why am I on this distro? Please take me off this distro. So then helpful people, maybe we'll put that in air quotes, helpful people decided they were going to straighten people out. Please don't do this, they said. Please don't reply to all, they said, while replying to all. So after about 10, 15 minutes, when people were, 10, 15 minutes after 8 o'clock, everybody arrives at 8 and email server crashed. Because everybody was replying to all and replying to all, and So I guess number one, don't pass on things you're not sure what's going on. Number two, reply just to the sender. Don't reply to everybody. I don't know why people, we still get that. Not a lot, but I still notice that. People sending to all. Small team I'm on now, and we're just asked to update our plans for travel for the rest of this, vacation for the rest of the year. And somebody always replies to all. Well, I don't care about your vacation plans. Have a great time. But I don't care. I don't care about your vacation time. Have a great time. I don't need to know these things. Just reply back to the manager. Let's see. So here's a couple of, I was reminded again. So we've had a couple incidents, not as red team, but as some of my roles supporting things. The first one, because it's less impactful, we come in one day, and I mentioned ArcSite. We come in one day, and one of our ArcSite servers is just offline. It's not responding at all. What happened? We finally get on the box, and we find out someone was logged in SSH, and they were doing some commands. Don't know why. They were in the folder where all the software is installed, and they did the good old RM asterisk, which removed everything, I guess like -F, -R for recursive. So they removed everything in that folder. They webbed out all the ArcSite software and other software as well, so we had to rebuild everything on that server. But the other one, which I thought was even more amazing, and I don't know the full fallout of this, but we came in one day, and not just one server, but several servers are offline. And it finally got it figured out. We're not in the same building as the server room. We had to get over there. We had to look and see. We get over there, and where's our server? It's missing. The whole rack is missing. They had decided it was time to PTI, or get rid of things. A secure environment, so you don't just take it outside. You get rid of by destroying it, shredding it, pounding it, whatever. And they thought they had the right rack targeted, and they, from what I understand, quite literally came in with either those nice, serious pruning shears or possibly a power tool, cut all the cables. They didn't disconnect anything. They cut them all. Wheeled the rack right on over to where it's supposed to be processed. We had a fun time getting that. That was multiple servers. And we had a fun time getting that stuff restored again. Thankfully, we did have images and such. Yeah, that was like a week of down, or maybe not quite a week of downtime. So I guess the lessons there is make sure you know what you're doing, make sure you're in the right location, make sure for the rack, I don't know why, for example, they didn't just try unplugging it and giving it a day or two to find out who complained. If nobody complained, maybe they got the right system, but just walking up and cutting the power, I hope they went down their checklist, because that probably should have been jobs lost. Because it damaged the equipment, and that was the wrong equipment. Trying to think if there was anything else. Will it come up? Yeah, I think. Oh, that was the power. I wanted to mention the power. Okay, all right. So finally, as I mentioned, there was an internal red team. We just worked on the building. We started the perimeter. We didn't go outside. We started the perimeter. But one thing I got to do was spend a year toying with the passwords, cracking passwords, whatever. And it was quite enlightening, quite entertaining. I started with a script someone had written in PowerShell. They had their top 20 list of passwords. And I noticed two of them, if you're not familiar, two of them would be called perhaps a keyboard walk or a keyboard pattern. If you're not familiar, and if you've got a keyboard in front of you, just think of starting like at the number 1 and just going down those 4 characters. And then maybe go over to 2 and go down. So that's why I started my terminology. I would call it, 1 down, and then maybe shift 2 down or something like that. And I noticed there were at least 2 keyboard patterns in this list, and I thought, I've never really looked into this. I don't know how often they're used. Oh my, that was a gold mine. If I was going to do an assessment and I had to start fast, I would start some keyboard walks. If you had a list of user counts to attack, I would start with some keyboard walks, because unfortunately, they Well, number one, I said, say you do 1 down, maybe you do shift 2 down. That's only 8 characters, so maybe you do 3 down and shift 4 down. That's 16. That's probably long enough. You've got alpha, you've got numeric, you've got uppercase and lowercase alpha, you've got the numerics, you've got the characters right above the numbers. So that would probably meet just about any password requirement. Maybe the length of 16 is the only thing that's too short nowadays. I don't know. But so imagine what I just said, 1 down, shift 2 down, 3 down, shift 4 down. That ended up being, I'm saving some secrets, but that ended up being, say, the second most common pattern I found. There were a lot of people using that combination, a lot. The only one that topped it was, say, reverse it. So it was shift 1 down, 2 down, shift 3 down, 4 down. But those two alone were 1 and 2, and they were 60 to 70% of all the passwords I was hitting. So going on from there, so I think we're up to the top over here now, the duplication. Different accounts used for different things, perhaps different parts of the network, something like that. Well, I found out a lot of people use the same password for the same account. For the different accounts. So their user account had the same password as their admin account. Let's see, and or sometimes I found what they did was they would use, over time I got to study, so I found out they would move it just over 1. Let's see, yeah, so the middle one, if it works, I found that over time they might move it over 1. If the 1 down, 2 down was expiring, they would simply move over and start with 2 down, shift 3 down. And then when that expired, they go over to 4 down, 3 down and then 4 down. And they just move it on over. And I also found through time it moved from network to network. They might have the password on this network here. When this other role, this other network, enclave, whatever, was expiring, they'd use the same password here now. And then they do the same thing. So we did a number of assessments where we basically started with user accounts and passwords. We would do a search to see who might be a good target user. And I was the keeper of the passwords in this case, but they would give me a list of, 8, 9 people. And I would look and I would say, well, these are the passwords I knew from a couple months ago. Let's start with those passwords. Figuring the expiration had probably come, so I would say, go to the next one, shift it over 1. That didn't work. Well, let's try one more time. Bingo, we're in. So we were starting many assessments with these passwords. So if you're doing red team stuff, that would be a good place, like I said, I would start. But perhaps also just do some research on what is commonly being used these days. But I was surprised at all the people that do use them. Now, I'll be honest, I think you can come up with very complex patterns of keyboard walks going side to side or something like that. You can, the keys almost line up with, like I said, the 1 QAZ down. But you could angle it a little bit differently and go 4. And what is it, ESZ down. And of course, you can always go down and up. You can mix your shift or not shifted. There can be some fairly complex patterns, but don't do just 1 down, 2 down, 3 down, 4 down. That's a lot of people are doing it. So, of course, the reason we're doing this, people are doing this, is because of the requirements. Maybe we need to reconsider and do different requirements. One customer I was working with was going to go with a longer phrase, really. I think they said it had to be like 25 to 30 letters. Numbers, whatever, but then they'd only make you change it once a year, unless they knew there was a security problem that your account had been compromised. Me personally, I generally I come up with a nonsense phrase, so they are usually legitimate words, but I get 3 or 4 words depending on how long they are, and I make up a phrase you're probably never going to see in any book or anything because they don't make sense. But it's words I can remember, and then you throw in a few of the extra characters, whatever. We're not saying that's necessarily the best, but that's what's been working for me because I usually hit 20 characters without any trouble. So, okay, some more fun of the things. Maybe this qualifies as the ID10T file, but in one environment I was in, they actually locked down the command prompt cmd.exe. We're not really sure what was going on, but it was locked down. You could not launch command.exe. Well, you could. Just open up Notepad, type in some commands. If you're not as familiar with this stuff, I've been command line before the GUIs, so I'm familiar with this. But just open up Notepad and just put in some commands. I gave that nice little monitor up there. just put in something like tree and pause, save that as a batch file, and launch that. And up pops command .exe and it'll run your commands. So anything you want it to do, you can do, just put it in a batch file first. So we don't know why, but command .exe was not allowed. But then, of course, that wasn't even the best part. The best part is down here at the right here. They had to disable PowerShell. You couldn't launch command.exe, but you could launch PowerShell. I sometimes tried to get going, maybe you can help me with this. I tried to get going security by, like technicality. Technically we're secure because we disabled this. It just doesn't roll off the tongue like security through obscurity, but anyway, I think sometimes those higher up think, well, I've heard this is bad, and so we must stop it. And make sure, as you guys rise in the ranks, make sure you don't become that person. Make sure you listen to the people around you who might know what they're talking about. Like I said, I don't really know what policy that was, but cmd.exe would not launch, from an icon or from another command line, but you could launch PowerShell. All right, so yes, I guess I'm wrapping up. I did fairly well, I guess. I hate to be ending too soon. So my words of advice, I don't know, stay calm and keep going. Because if you're working anything cybersecurity related, you've got a job for life. In one form or another, you've got a role for life. You might want to focus on new skills, try some new things. But it's really, as long as you want to stay, because the human element, people, are always going to be there. There are always going to be some new folks who don't really have this kind of a background. And they're going to use their social security number, or they're going to use the keyboard walk, the very simple keyboard walk. And we need to be able to catch that and politely tell them that's not a good idea. Again, like I say, try different things. I guess I liked what the 1 o'clock said. I don't know if the college degree is such a great thing for a field like this. I would say get your associates, maybe your bachelor's. But for a while, maybe work on your certifications, things you would like to pursue. Because he mentioned it, I think, the degree is fine, but it's aging if you're not keeping up with things. And perhaps these certifications are a way to prompt you to keep up with things and try some different things and expand your range of skills and experience. So that's personally what I would recommend. Get the associates or the bachelor's maybe, and then get some certifications and start from there. See what your environment would like. Think about where you want to go with your career, and then continue on with the bachelor's if you didn't get it, or continue on with the master's or something like that. And this is a bit personal. I hope you don't consider it too political, but with a lot of the tension, a lot of the troubles, relationships, families, work stress, home life stress, I think it's more important than ever. I'm glad everybody's here. I'm glad you all came at least to hear me. I hope it was an interesting presentation. But I think we need to keep in touch with each other on a personal level, not through, I don't have my phone handy, not through our phones, not through our tablets. I know some people are, I think, are trying to start that trend where they get together with friends and there's no phones, no tablets. You go do something. Go take a walk, go ride your bikes, go fishing. Go sit at the coffee shop and talk about things without your phones. Because I think that's part of the problem. We're losing touch with each other. So I hope these things can survive. I think some of these conferences are having trouble since COVID with the lockdowns, and we moved to more virtual. I hope we can get back to these. With that, I guess I'm all done. Like I said, I tried to fill it fairly well, but there's plenty of time for questions or comments if anybody has anything.
When you're talking about the lockdowns, I remember back in the day, if things were locked down, all you had to do is go into the help files and start looking for some of the stuff in the help files, like how to get to CMD or different things like that, and they wouldn't block that. And you were able to get into the help files with Microsoft.
I'm sure there are other ways, yes. Yeah, and you want to be a red teamer, you want to be thinking about that. Penetration testing, you want to be thinking about that. Well, what if I try it this way? Or what if I do it that way? So, that's a good catch. Anybody else? Anything? Looks like no. Okay.